I know that there's legislation on a very fast track on ethics reform, and in the Senate particularly. What are the specific issues that you're most concerned about in ethics reform? What are the things that bother you and bother your constituents about what's been happening in public life with officials that destroy the public trust?
Well, just this year, Steve, the state of Florida had to write off $800,000 in fines and penalties that were levied against politicians and public officials. Those fines were for violation of elections laws and ethics laws, and they wrote off the fines because they were uncollectible. So I think that bothers a lot of people. I think public officials, and the Speaker and I agree, public officials ought to set the standard, not drag behind the standard of proper behavior. You know, if the average man or woman on the street owes money, they got to pay it. They don't get to have it written off. If they haven't paid their taxes, they get a lien on their property. So first, we're saying that if a public official is found guilty, owes a fine, has violated elections or ethics laws, they ought to pay their fine or have their public salary garnished or maybe have their property liened against. We think that's important. Secondly, we think that people in Florida ought to be able to find out what Will and I owe, who we owe, and what we own, and the same with other public officials. They ought to be able to find it easily, so we want to put financial disclosures online. We think that, that people ought not to get two public paychecks if they don't deserve it. It's fine for firefighters, police officers, teachers, others who have a history in a particular area and credentials to then run for office. We want to encourage that. But when somebody gets elected to the legislature and they've got no background in education at all, and then suddenly they're a member of the Education Committee, the Appropriations Committee, they can vote on billions of dollars in education funding, and suddenly they become an expert on education and they get hired by some school district or college for a $50 or $80 or $100,000 a year walking around job. We think that's wrong.